Hello, my name is S.K. Williams, and he is risen. He is risen indeed. Today is Pascha, otherwise known as Easter, and this is my Easter address for my old channel. For those who might be a bit confused, since Easter was a week ago, I am presenting this video on the 12th day of April 2026, and Easter was on the 5th of April 2026. This video is for the Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, Ancient Assyrian Church of the East, and other churches that use the older calendar system, and as a result, celebrate Pascha on the 12th of April 2026. This address, however, is more than just honoring the day for other people this year. This year, due to a conflict in schedules, I couldn't begin Lent along the Western cycle, so I began Lent along the Eastern cycle. That means that my Pascha will be on the 12th of April 2026, and hopefully by the time that you hear this, I have already attended for the third year in a row as a guest a divine liturgy from the Russian Orthodox Church. I'm not Russian Orthodox myself, but myself and my lady love do enjoy going there every year. But having said that, this Paschal season really highlights certain things that are wrong with our society. Things that are wrong with our society precisely because we have left Christ. We live in a withering, decaying society. People used to derive their cultural life and experiences from the church. There were always other things besides just the church, but the church was central to the identity of the culture. But we have defamed the church and unjustly maligned it. It is now so that if one is clergy, one is assumed to be a child molester of some sort because of unfair media coverage that spares public school teachers, which are far more likely than clergy are, and certainly won't cover atheist activism's role in culture trafficking, but will endlessly remind us of every file priest. And this is not just, not fair, not good, but it is what we see. And if you really think about it, we were sold a story. In that story, religion was seen as this great evil force that holds us back and that promotes immorality and authoritarianism and tyranny. And secularism would give us freedom. We would be free from religion and all of the bad that religion causes. We would have a more rational society with greater freedoms and greater personal fulfillments. We now live in a largely secularized world, and we don't have that. Indeed, we don't even have freedom from religion. Secularism has always been a Trojan horse. Secularism claims to not be religious. It claims to be neutral toward religion. But then secularism also demands that we stick to secular values and demands certain specific beliefs be accepted by everyone in society. Those are the secular beliefs. from which the secular values that we're all supposed to hold to come from. And secular governments do tend to mandate compliance with secular beliefs and practices. This is why in the UK it's perfectly fine for an atheist to mock and ridicule religion on television, but a street preacher can go to jail for causing offence, even if he hasn't actually preached anything that is normally considered offensive in today's society against rainbow people or against racial minorities. The truth of the matter is, secularism is not neutrality toward religion. It claims to be, but it's not. It has its own beliefs and values that it demands we hold. And our secular society hasn't been made better by these beliefs. Indeed, it has degenerated. Morality is actually lower, not higher. And as for our supreme rationality, because technology has given us all of the world's information at our fingertips, which naturally destroys religion as reason prevails, has only created echo chambers and pits of despair that are caused by algorithms and social media interactions. Secularism has failed in its promises. And indeed, as the church withered, everything else may have seemed fine at first, but the church was the taproot of our culture, at least if you're a Western culture. And for our purposes, Russia and other Eastern European countries are Western. And so are countries like Australia. We're talking about a West that's defined by Christianity. We're talking about a West that comes from a certain cultural tradition. It's not Asian. But all of it came from the church. Even our atheism came from the church. For you see, as much as modern polemicists like A.C. Grayling or Tim Whitmarsh prefer to rewrite history and say that the ancient Greeks and Romans invented secular humanism before Christianity existed, so if any borrowing happened between Christianity and humanism, Christianity borrowed from humanism, the truth is that secular humanism didn't exist until the 19th century. And it's really just an effort to keep parts of Christian assumptions and identities and anthropology, whilst kicking out Christian metaphysics and Christian moral principles. And it never worked. It always produces awful results. So awful that the later secularists will deny that the first secularists were ever secularists. This is what happened when the new atheism declared that the communists did not kill in the name of atheism. They killed in the name of communism, and that communism was actually a form of religion. Ironically, I agree with them that communism was a form of religion. But it's the same religion that the new atheists were pushing. The new atheism was largely just progressives, promoting the same progressive political narrative and social narrative. There was nothing really new about it. All of their arguments went back to the 19th century, or at best early 20th century. They were even digging up people like Freud. And that's the point. Modern secularism largely comes from the neo-Hegelian school of thought. It comes from the same dialectic materialism that gave rise to Marx, that gave rise to Sigmund Freud, that gave rise to National Socialism, which I know we're supposed to pretend is far right-wing, but is actually rooted in socialism. I know we're supposed to pretend that they only named their party socialist to get popularity, but they really weren't. But they were socialists. They set policies up so that private ownership was retained, unlike the communists, but was highly regulated and had to obey the state. And they had their generous welfare state to go along with it. But if you'll notice, The things that Christopher Hitchens said we could use to fulfill our lives and give us greater dreams that were in fact better than using a holy book like the Bible. Things like literature and art, well, they've all decayed as well. Star Wars was purchased by Disney. In fact, Lucasfilm in general was. Star Wars is now virtually dead. Indiana Jones went with him. Star Trek, Doctor Who, Harry Potter, even Lord of the Rings has been affected, though I wouldn't worry too much about Lord of the Rings. The main problem with the other franchises is that we always tend to think about them as being this one thing. So a corruption in the future corrupts the whole. But with Tolkien, people generally think of Tolkien's work as the real Middle-earth, and everything else is fan fiction. Even the things that were done by his son are on a second tier, though higher than everything else. So things like The Rings of Power, or any upcoming movie written by Stephen Colbert, they're not likely to damage Lord of the Rings in the same way that Star Wars or Star Trek have been. But the point is, once we got rid of our Christian anthropology and our Christian perspective and embraced the secularist ideal, our society lost its pop culture. Because it can't tell good stories anymore. Because stories are an expression of the values of the people telling the story. And the values of secularism are not good and not rationally coherent. Indeed, we're told that the rational world would give secularism would give us a more rational world, and it has given us an insane world where people dye their hair blue, pierce their bodies all over, tattoo themselves, and then screech like banshees if someone they don't approve of, like a Christian street preacher, walks by. We have a society where people are graduating Ivy League universities without ever having read a book, and where people do not know history or culture or philosophy. And as much as we talked about secularism teaching critical thinking skills, we don't teach critical thinking skills. We taught them how to mock and ridicule Christianity, and how to mock and ridicule conservative values, and to say the word fascist. But we didn't actually teach them. And now our society lays in ruins, dead. But perhaps it can be revived, just as Jesus was. For Jesus came back from the dead, trampling death by death. And so too can Christianity return. And our culture can return, but only if Christ returns first. I don't have much else to say, so I shall take my leave of you now. Happy Pascha to all who celebrate it. Thank you, God bless, and goodbye.